What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of Mic'd Up with Max Webster. Today we welcome on our first guest. Let's roll the rest of the intro. Hope you enjoy. All right, today we got the man, the myth, the legend from Talking Giants, Bobby Skinner. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to jump on the channel with you. Obviously, I'm known from the big signs in the back, but it's gonna be cool to, talk about something other than the Giants, man. I get tired out of talking about the Giants every once in a while, so it's refreshing to not have to focus on, the cornerback two battle.
or who are we taking at 11? The topic of conversations of the offseason for sure. But yeah, I wanted this channel to be somewhere where the viewers could come and learn about the people they watch, but also, like I said, the content creators. I feel like it's easy to kind of lose yourself if you're always covering the same thing. So it's good to get on and talk about yourself every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I hear you, man. Like you get so lost and like I have to check myself. It's like remember, Bobby. It's like nobody knows the Giants like you. Like you can't expect people to if you're not familiar with me, viewers like I break down film, and I always remind myself like Bobby, you are the crazy one. You're the one like normal people don't break down film; they just watch.
Yeah.
So I always have to keep myself in check with that type of stuff.
All right, Bobby. So for the people who are watching who might not already know about Talking Giants, why don't you kind of give us an insight on what you do on YouTube, Spotify, where they can find you, and the type of things that you talk about in the season and off season?
Yeah, it basically started as a podcast on Apple, Spotify, all the regular podcast apps. Myself and Danny King, who still does work with us, and then comes on the show here and there. And we grew it in 2019. It got big when Daniel Jones was drafted, and we really dove deep into him and broke down who he was. And it started growing. Justin joined the team in January of 2020. Became the full-time co-host, and it kind of blew up a little bit after that. And then YouTube, we really haven't been doing YouTube until maybe like August. Like we had some videos here and there, but we didn't like do any YouTube videos until around August. Like we had a couple draft videos and that was it.
What
Or
inspired you
random.
guys to want to go to YouTube? Was it just trying to reach a different audience, or just wanted to add a video aspect to the type of environment you guys were doing, or?
Well, one, it is an audience we didn't like we weren't taking advantage of. We were just doing the podcast, and we had the social medias of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. But it was an audience we hadn't reached. So we're like, all right, we're just gonna we got a video editor to put our stuff on YouTube. And also like I always did like 1 minute, 2 minute breakdowns on Twitter and social media. And I was like, I'll just throw those on YouTube too. And then what I realized is it gave us an option to do more long-term, like long form content.
Right.
Uh and which paved the way for the O-line reports. Like the O-line report was something, it's what I'm best known for. It wasn't planned until after week one. It was really that game. I did a quick breakdown on why the run game struggled that week, and then you hear people say, the offensive line. It's a, and I'm rambling right now. It's a
No, you're good.
confusing
You're good, man.
position.
This is good.
People will say, hey, this guy sucks, and they don't really know. And like I was saying
Right.
before, I don't blame them. I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do it for myself, so I can just be like, hey, if people say I'm wrong about something, be like, check this out. And then it took its life of its own, and we realized longer form content on YouTube does well. We found out how diehard the audience of YouTube, like we thought our audience was already diehard. The YouTube crowd is on another level. Now you get the diehard angry people at you a little more too. But
Yeah, that's
it
true.
it was just an audience we hadn't reached, and then once we were on it and using it, we realized like this is kind of turning into our biggest thing. Like the podcast is always the number one thing, but the podcast is on YouTube now too as well. So it's we get our biggest numbers on anything from the Apple Podcast app, but YouTube is like our main asset right now.
Cool, cool. All right, well, enough about your YouTube and your Spotify. We're here to talk about who Bobby Skinner is, so the people who watch you all the time can get to know a little bit more about you, right? So we'll start with where you're from, and if you grew up there, and we'll continue from there.
Right now, I am in. I I am a Florida man. Like I think I embark Florida man pretty well. I live in Florida. I live on in central Florida where the space shuttle goes off. You know, near the coast. Um, did grow up here. We're like, okay, well, how did this Florida guy end up being a Giants fan? I was born in New Jersey. Was born in New Jersey.
Okay.
We moved down here when I was a couple, 2, 3 years old, and grew up here. So I've lived all over this county, but I grew up here in Brevard County. And my dad's one of 8 kids who, he's from New Jersey. My mom grew up here, but my dad's one of 8 kids. Um, 6 of the 8 kids now live down here. My grandparents live down here, and our neighbors moved down here. So it was like my aunt Carol moved down here, and then from then on, it was like the floodgates were open. Everyone raced their way down to Florida.
That sounds great, man. I spent the last 3 years in Arizona, and when I separated active duty, my wife wanted to come back to where family was at. So I get the how everybody just kind of flocks, especially when you got that warm weather. I had cold weather going for me, so
I spent a couple of years in Minnesota, man, uh, and in school, and I thought going up there. I was like, oh, I like the cold. I like the cold. I had no idea what cold was until I was, negative 30 degrees, and
yeah.
it was just miserable to go outside. I didn't realize what cold was. So I definitely enjoy like, hey, I enjoy that when it gets 40 degrees down here. It's like a crazy thing compared to it being that just for like 4 or 5 months straight.
Yeah, I hear you. Because like in Arizona, I mean, you got your hot summers. It's the desert. I felt temperatures there. The hottest actual temperature I felt the 3 years I was there was 126 degrees outside. And then when the sun goes down in the summer, temperature drops about 20, 30 degrees. But in the winters, your highs are still about 50 degrees. So, I mean, these people are walking into Walmart like bundled up in jeans, sweatshirts, jackets, hats. And I'm like, it's 50 degrees. Like, I come
That's the
from
way
where
I
it's.
am now, man.
You got too used to the warm, huh?
I but here in Florida it's different than Arizona. It doesn't drop at night. The
Right.
weather it's you forget every year. Like right now it's nice, but you forget every year right around end of April, beginning of May. It's like how hot it gets every year. And this is my first year not working outside. And just you just forget every year how freaking brutally hot it gets and miserable. But um I would take that over the cold any day of the week.
For sure. So you say this is your first year not working outside. What did you used to do?
I did a lot of things, but I I did pool service for 7 years.
Okay.
I worked for a company, and then I started my own company on the side. The company I worked for did commercial accounts, condos and stuff. And so I went to them. It's like, hey, I want to start my own pool service. I'm doing residential. It's like I'm not competing with you. I was like, I'll buy my all my stuff from you, so you know that I'm not stealing it from you. And they
Right.
were they still are like family. That company. I talk to them all the time. In fact, I'm going to see one of them tomorrow. Uh, and I really did enjoy that. Like when I started my own company, I was like, okay, this is going to be my career. I'm going to spend time, and I did. Um, but I got into this podcasting stuff, and it took off, and realized I realized I could make a career out of it. So put that on hold. So, but I do still have some pools like Wednesday morning. So I don't know when this will be out, but like my Wednesday mornings from 6:30 in the morning till noon, I'm cleaning pools. So it's nice to get back out there because I truly do like working outside. Like
Yeah.
I know some people hate it. I I kind of hate the idea of not being outside all the time.
Right. And I mean, that's the big thing right now, especially with everything going on in the world. Like, even if you see people outside, like, people just aren't spending time outside like they usually do. And I mean, that's just because of a lot of the things that are going on in the world right now. But yeah, so I totally get the wanting to be outside, especially in a time like this where it's kind of like you have to be cooped up inside most of the time unless you got somewhere to be, something to do.
I force myself. I force myself to get up in the morning. I don't do it as strict as I once did when I started this job, but I like to get outside on the sunrise, either go to up to the beach or a lake or something and get outside. And then on the weekends, I take advantage of the weekends now, especially with football season's over. It's like okay, I can enjoy I enjoy football, but I can
Right.
enjoy a Sunday and do whatever I want again.
Right. So on a typical Sunday that you're not covering football, what are you doing now? Because I'm sure if it's something you want to do, you're not going to go choose. Hey, I'm going to go clean some pools right now.
No, no,
so
no.
so what is a Sunday like in the off season for Bobby?
It's It truly is whatever I want. There's days where we'll spend the whole day at the beach, and then there's days where me and my brother will drive around and do random stuff or screw around. It's just I'm not like a big like, oh, let's plan to go do this. I'm kind of like a go with the flow. So there's a big flea market near me. I'll
Okay.
go do that. Go to the beach. Go to the park.
Are
Go.
you a drinker?
Um, no, I
No.
used to be. I'll have a beer. I'll have a
Right.
beer or two, but I don't get drunk anymore. I've probably gotten drunk like maybe once in the last year. I'm trying to think of the last time I may have like I can't even remember the last time where it's like, oh man, I was drunk. But I can have a beer or
Right.
two. In fact, I guess we're getting real. I used to have a real issue with it, and so I
Yeah.
went 4 years totally clean, like not even a drop. Like the only drop I had was a shot glass worth of wine on Passover. Um, and but now I can go to the beach and get myself a lime marita or something from the 7-Eleven and drink that and have like no urge for another one.
So that is that your go-to drink there when you do? You get the limaritas?
I have turned into a fruity drink drinker. I wasn't, I was always like a Bush, Budweiser type man. Now it's like the seltzers. So whenever I go to the beach, it's the seltzers now. Where I used to be,
Is that a Florida thing? Because another content creator I watched just moved from New York to Florida, and since being there, the man is all about seltzers. Is that like a
I,
Florida thing?
I feel like it's turning into everything. Like everyone's doing it now. I think it's more of an outside thing. But like if I guess like if I'm at a restaurant, I'm not getting a seltzer. Like I'm gonna get like a Bud Light or something. Um, we went to a restaurant for my birthday a few weeks ago. I think I got like a Bud Light or something. So at a restaurant, I'll have a regular beer. But if I'm going to the beach, I'll grab just one of those 24-ounce seltzers or whatever, and that'll be my drink for an hour.
It's always fun to, especially now, man. I wish like I live close to a beach or something. I would be there for sure just to get out, even if I'm the only one there. Right now, I think outside I got about 18 degrees and it was snowing most of the day today. So
Brutal.
ain't nowhere to go just to get outside and do something. It's kind of go outside, go to the store, and come back.
I love it, man. Obviously, like right now, you're not going out and tanning or nothing, but you go out there and walk.
Right.
But this past season, so this is I worked full time doing this stuff, and this during the season, and there's like a nice little campground. And my parents have one of those fifth wheel pop up campers,
Yeah.
and so I would go and I spent like 3 or 4 weekends out there, and man, it's just it's perfect. I mean, you got somewhere where you can chill and the AC, and then go spend a couple hours out in the water or tan, or, just hanging out on the beach. And I really like. I mean, I soaked up like every minute of it, and I was so used to being so tan because of cleaning pools that I would just fry myself. I was like, okay, I got to get all my tan back, and during the weekend. So,
Yeah.
so
I know last night we were talking a bit about Justin and how white he's getting. Going
oh
down to
man, I
Florida,
couldn't
he's going
do
to
it.
be
I'm gonna get him down to Florida, and I'm gonna him and Danny. We're saving up. I'm saving up to bring them down here for a vacation or do something. I because you're part of the Patreon. We have a Patreon.
yeah. Yep.
We haven't spent a dime of the Patreon. We're saving that up. So when the draft, you crank out a ton of work for the draft, and then post draft you're getting stuff done, and then there's like a 2-3 week dead period between the end of all that and then training camp. So I want to get them down here for like a week doing for that, and fry both of them because they're both freaking like ghosts. It's crazy.
So although, like I said, this podcast is going to be just chilling, I do want to sprinkle in throughout a little bit about the content that you cover, obviously being the New York Giants. So talking about maybe free agency here, assuming the cap's 185, you think Leonard Williams comes back?
I think they have so much invested in him they have to, like that trade for him, which I don't know where I stand on it. We really haven't talked about it in a while, but it was maybe the most hated move by Dave Gettleman. I didn't think it was the worst, but it probably was the most hated because
You're
it didn't
talking
make
last year?
sense. Yeah, the trade for
Yeah.
Leonard Williams, it just didn't make sense. He was becoming a free agent. You could have tried and got him in the market, and especially at the time, like I didn't view Leonard Williams as a guy you have to go like. like you got to do everything you can to keep this guy.
Right.
But he had his career year this year. So coming off a career year and you invested draft like picks into him, I think he's the one guy that is up in the air that just is like, there's just kind of no doubt in my mind. Like Dalvin Tomlinson, there's doubt in my mind. Kevin Zeitler, there's doubt in my mind. Golden Tate, you think he's gone. Solder, you think there's guys you think are gone or there's doubt, but you would like to bring him back. Leonard Williams is the one to me that I think is like, I would be blown away if he's not back here.
So Leonard Williams would be your surprise let go of the offseason if that happens.
I would be blown away. They could trade Actually, I won't say all that because he's not a free agent. But out of the realistic ones, he would be the surprise.
Right. And then just kind of moving forward on that, like I said, we'll sprinkle it. But what's your opinion on wide receiver? Are you one of those guys who wants to focus on that in free agency, or more so target that in the draft?
Free agency's tough, man, because then if you're getting like a guy like Allen Robinson or Galladay, you're spending like 18 to 20 mil. And we have cap space, but not a ton of cap space, and that means you move a guy. So if they go out and I think they should try and target somebody in free agency. I think they'll end up somewhere, around middle of the pack somewhere, but like they did with, Martinez and Bradbury, somebody within the 10 to 15 mil a year range. But I also think if a guy like Jalen Waddle's there in the draft, like that's the guy I'm going for. Like, that's the guy I'm hoping falls to 11 for the New York Giants. I think is realistic. Like Jamar Chase, yeah, I would love him the most, but I don't think he's going to fall there. Waddle's the guy that I can see falling there where it's like, that's the pick.
You think Waddle falls farther than Smith?
I don't
without
know.
A combine?
It depends because right now in the media's eyes, everyone likes Smith better. But I could see a lot of teams being like, we like Waddle better. Like, we don't care that like it's cool he won a Heisman and all, but look at them when they were on the same team. Yeah. Waddle was the guy that was getting the big plays, and then obviously Waddle got hurt. So Waddle could be the guy, that goes before Smith. But I think Smith would be worth taking if he fell there too, even though, you look at him and he looks like a child sometimes, with his frame. So if one of those three are there, Chase, Waddle, or Smith, I think that's probably where I'd end up on. Like you pick that guy. But I can also, because we're at 11 compared to like 4 and 6 in past years where it's like what handful of guys are going to be there. Right. I could see myself falling in love with Kyle Pitts, Patrick Surtain. Like there's like 4 or 5 guys I could see myself falling in love with.
Kyle Pitts is a very controversial topic amongst Giants fans right now.
He is, and I haven't watched him like fully yet. Like, you see the highlights and stuff.
Right.
So I starting next week, I think I'm going to like just crank out videos of like the top 60 guys and just go from like what their rankings are and 1 through 60. So I will have myself a nice informed Kyle Pitts opinion by March 1st.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll jump back into you a little bit. Like you said, you've kind of become famous on YouTube for your O-line report. I'm assuming, in case any of you viewers who watched didn't know, Bobby Skinner over here is a bit of a giant. He's coming in at 6'7". So I'm assuming you played football when you were younger, yeah?
Yeah, yep. I played. Started in high school, and I love basketball. In fact, I kind of had a weird like extracurricular activity like life. Like as a kid, I loved racing. Like I was so in the cars, and then my dad, we're here in Florida. Have Daytona and stuff.
Right.
There's a track in Orlando. There's a track in New Smyrna. We grew up out there. I mean, the highlights of my weekends as a kid was going to the racetrack. Fell in love with racing. In fact, then I started racing. I mean, I was in 6th grade. I was racing, the 4-cylinder class on a dirt track and flipped a car over. Went back to school the next Monday, and none of the kids believed me. They're like, "You're lying." I was like, "No." I get it though, because what, your 12-year-old friend said he flipped a car over the weekend. I wouldn't believe him either. Right. And then got into racing, and then I got into basketball heavy in middle school. Like I didn't really start getting into sports until around like the 6th grade, and became a huge basketball fan. And started playing basketball. And then the football coach was like, "Dude, you need to play football." He's like, you can play basketball. He's like, "You're never going to play college basketball." He's like, it's not going to happen. You're going to play football. And I like football. I watch it on TV, but I never played it. So I went out, sucked. I was just big. And I was just, the first year, like our first couple of months is like, they called me big for nothing. Cause like I was just big and didn't know what I was doing. And
Were
then
you already this tall at that point in high school?
yeah, like 6'5", six,
Oh,
but
okay.
I was big, um, and I was probably skinnier than I was like at the end of my high school time there too. Like I was trying to play basketball, so they would call me big for nothing because I didn't know what I was doing. So I put in work, got better. Obviously played through high school, and then I played at a college in Minnesota, like I was talking about before,
Yep.
being in Minnesota, St. Olaf, and was there for 2 years before I left the school, and that was the end of my football time. But I played offensive line, which makes sense for the O line reports.
Right. So I know in high school it's kind of typical to either float like not necessarily specific positions or like play on both sides of the ball. Were you specifically an offensive lineman? If so, where did you typically play on the line there in high
I
school and
put
college?
I played tackle, like offensive line was my position. But we were a small school, so I played defense too.
Okay.
So if it was a big game, I would play. They'd put me at nose tackle or three technique. So I did play a defense, but offensive line was my position. Like nobody was recruiting me to play D line. Everyone was recruiting me to play offensive line.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I played tackle, and it's just, I mean, I went from nothing, and I mean, I went to a small school, so it wasn't like I was lighting it up for the Florida Gators to come and like I wasn't getting offers from the Gators. So a tackle was my main position, and I just kind of would work at like that's what I worked at. Like I never worked on D line drills in the off season. It was always O line.
So we talked about racing a little bit there. Racing for me, like NASCAR is one of those things that I can't really get into, especially on television. But I always remember as a kid, I'd go to like the local dirt track with my stepdad or whatever, and I would have the greatest time, especially when the race is over. You know, they open up the track, you can kind of go down, check out the cars, hop in the seat, take some pictures and stuff. I have some great memories. But as far as like watching it, like that's one of those sports for me that I just can't get into watching on television.
I I grew up on like I grew up a NASCAR junkie. Like if you ask me questions about 2000 to 2007, 8 NASCAR, I can tell you like every guy who won a championship, like random little stuff. In fact, I was such a weirdo. Jimmy, do you know who Jimmy Johnson is? The guy who, won
Yeah,
the
the
7
Lowe's
championships.
driver.
I liked him from the start. My mom thought I was a weirdo. It's like, why do you like this guy? I was like, he drove the Lowe's car, and then Mike Skinner, obviously the last name Mike Skinner, he drove the Lowe's car before that, so that's how I became a Johnson fan.
That
Which is
that's kind of funny too, the Mike Skinner story and how you liked him just because of the last name. That's actually how I kind of became a Giants fan. I was in like eighth grade, and I wasn't really paying attention to football too much, just kind of focusing on school, and I was big into video games, and so I didn't spend much time watching football or any of that, and so I just kind of supported the Packers because one of my teachers was previously a Packers player back in the '60s. I think he was like a practice squad guy or something, but watching the Giants when I was in eighth grade, there was the corner Corey Webster. So when
yeah.
I started watching football, and I was like, that's kind of cool. I just saw my name on the back of a jersey, and so I was like, I live in New York. I guess I'll just start following the Giants now.
Well, that's cool. So I'm happy Corey Webster made you a Giants fan. Um,
Absolutely.
the Skinner story with us though, it's so funny. One, we used to just mess with kids in school, which is probably why they didn't believe me that I flipped a car. But like, oh yeah, Mike Skinner's my uncle, and then you tell your close friends you're lying, and then they tell everyone it's like, oh, you made that up.
Right.
But that was like third grade and stuff. So we grew up at the track, New Smyrna. It's right south of Daytona. Um, and we go out there, and my dad raced the number 50 car, and in the Super Stock series, and we hear over the intercom like, "Can the Skinners come to the front office? We need to figure out what's going on." So we get there. There's another person entering the race in a number 50 car, Jason Skinner, who is Mike Skinner's son. So they both entered the same series with number 50 as Skinners, and they were so confused. So we ended up meeting Mike. I met him at like an autograph section, like when I was a little kid. But like
That's
meeting
pretty
him,
cool.
we sat there and talked with him for 30 minutes. In fact, I interviewed him a couple years ago for Simple Man Radio, when Simple Man Radio was like my focus, which is like got me in the podcast and stuff. Um, so it's been funny because he grew up in Daytona, so he's around here. His kids grew up around here racing at New Smyrna and stuff. So yeah, the Mike Skinner story. It's kind of funny. I remember vividly us being in the pits and just talking with Mike Skinner for like 30, 45 minutes.
And Mike Skinner isn't the only big name that you've met. One recently, I remember blowing up on your Twitter there. You went down for the Senior Bowl stuff.
Yeah, Senior
Yeah,
Bowl week.
yeah. So down there, you saw Joe Judge and Pat Graham, correct?
Yes, yes, I did, and I felt so bad. Well, first, I was there like covering the Senior Bowl, which is watching the practices, making videos, and making content. Um, and so I wanted to talk to them. Like I knew they were there. I wanted to talk to them and try and get something out of it. So the Wednesday I was there, I parked in the coach's parking lot. I got there an hour early, parked in the coach's parking lot. Um, so practice ends, I'm in my car, and I see them walk by. I was like, I'm not gonna get out and like yell at these guys. And
Bombard them.
I tweeted out. I was like, I saw Joe Judge and Patrick Graham today, but I didn't say anything. Everyone's like, you coward, are you kidding me? And so I hate the idea of ambushing somebody and being like, hey, can you want to talk first? Like I hate it. I think it sucks. I think it's crappy to do to people.
Yeah,
Like even like it was like my question was playful, but it's like I caught him off guard.
right.
So everyone called me a coward, which was like, all right, you guys want to see a coward? Next day I'm gonna do it. Next day I'm gonna do it. So waited outside where the coaches were. Like, hey, Coach Judge, can I get you for a second? And he was off put at first because he didn't recognize me. And then when he realized, like, oh, you're the guy who did the shirts and like we're talking Giants, he was like, oh, that's cool. So it ended up working out really well. If I asked any other question, it probably would have been horrible. But because
Right.
I asked about the shake and bake and like, oh, shake and bake, Pat, Pat just turned his license tags into shake and bake. So I've never been a good interviewer, but I feel like that was the best question I ever had, and it was just pure luck that that's the one question I had.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty awesome, man. No matter what the topic of conversation is or how long or short it is, it's always cool to meet people like that. I mean, it's just a cool experience.
And I'm not a starstruck guy. Like if and I we were talking about this afterwards. If I had an interview lined up with Joe Judge, I'd be nervous because I want to do a good job on it.
Right.
But it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, it's Joe Judge.
Yeah.
But what made me nervous is like he could hate this. Like he may hate like this sucks. Like what I'm doing right now is it's such a crappy thing to do is ambush somebody. So I was so nervous because I just hated everything I was doing. It was surprised like I was like this could be my first impression with Coach Judge and we totally screw it up. Um so but somebody told us that once he realized that who it was that he was like, oh, he was sorry that he was off putting it first. So it was good to hear somebody within the Giants was like, hey, like, we're, Joe was cool with everything that went down.
Cool, cool. I know at the end of the video, you talked about sending them some shirts. Did you ever get a PO box to send it to?
I sent it. I'm doing the whole can't tell you who, but
Yeah, yeah.
the person who reached out and told me that they were cool with it gave me an address. At like it was just the Giants address, but he's like, make sure, like he's like, I'll make sure they get it. So, I'm pretty sure they've gotten their shirts.
Cool. Maybe we'll get to see it in a off-season interview here at some
If
point.
they did that, man, that would be nuts. We always had and I don't know. I still think he may have listened to an episode here or there. I'm not sure, but
You're
I don't
not
know
the
how.
only one. I'm pretty sure Tana over on his channel thinks the same thing because he was doing that red hoodie thing for good luck for a while, and all of a
Yes,
sudden
yes.
Joe Judge started wearing some red hoodie in his press conference.
I told a story about Little Caesars, which ended up being like people love that story. Like they're like, oh my god, that's so funny. And then like a week or two later, Joe Judge brings up Little Caesars in an interview. It's like what? It's like so that was our hint. And then our other thing that we thought maybe is we were doing a mailbag episode. And it's like what happens with Daniel Jones' future and stuff. And I like Daniel Jones a lot. Um, but my big talking point was like, I don't know how Joe Judge feels about Daniel Jones. And like we talked about 5 minutes and then we clipped that and put it on social media. That day, Joe Judge to the media was like, it was like his big, like Daniel Jones is our QB. Like we believe in him type thing. So those two clips are what makes us think that Joe Judge may have listened or somebody that knows him listens and talks to him.
Yeah, I mean that would be cool, man. I've always enjoyed your stuff. I haven't been around for forever. I haven't been around since the beginning, but since you've been on YouTube and you collaborated with Tana a little while ago, I've been all up in your content and thoroughly enjoyed everything. So moving on to the next thing, I just want to thank you as a content creator for what you provide for the community and just kind of some insight, like you said, for people who don't get to understand maybe as well as you what they're seeing on film, just so you can come on down there and break it down and even player by player talk about what they're doing good, what they're doing bad, and things moving on to the next week.
And I really do appreciate that. And here's my goal with everything that I do, because I do the film stuff, and I see people that do it as well. And I was like, you know what? I always say it's like I feel like they're trying to impress scouts and not trying to make good content. Like I hate it. It's like they're using terms that people don't use. It's like nobody like most people aren't going to know what Rip and Liz mean and all. Like it's like people don't know that. Just say motion, or
Yeah.
just say like you can use like. And on my streams, I make sure every video, even stuff as simple as this is what the A gap is, this is what the B gap is. Like not who you can't just expect people to know that. So I've always been like, I want to make my content for someone who's never played football, has never studied football. It makes it easier to understand that. So when I get those are my favorite comments in the world. It's like, man, you teach me about the game in a simple way. Like that is what we want our content to be. Because at the end of the day, we're just common like people too who just love football.
Right.
Like I just know football more than the average person, Whereas, a guy who does tile work. Like if someone wants to explain to me tile work, you know, give me the basics. Show me step by
Right.
step. Like give me talk me through it. Don't just be like, all right, go. Hit that bathroom. Make sure you get the wall. Like walk me through it. So
Right, like I'm an aircraft mechanic for a living, so if I start naming off, you gotta like different components and how they communicate with each other and what you gotta do to break down troubleshooting and figure out what's going on because you have this problem, you're gonna have zero idea what I'm talking about.
yeah, exactly. And what we've always wanted to do on our show is we want our show to be for everybody. Look, if you don't want to watch the O-line breakdowns, well, cool. We got good banter on the show. Like
Right,
we have tweets that aren't like, it's not everything's a film breakdown. Sometimes it's just opinions. Like, so we try and be the best of everything. Like we're not gonna like, like entertainer. Like he calls games. I'll never call games. Like I just
right,
that's not what I do. I'm not good at it. Um, and so doing what we do and just being ourselves and I always say this, like never think highly of yourself. Like one, even if you are like, even if this grows to be huge and we become stars of this, at the end of the day, we're just making stupid ass football content. Like you're not like, it's not important. And I see people grow and especially in like sports media and stuff. And it's like, man, like I get that some people in your audience, but the 90% of your audience could care less about like what you think on certain issues or and even if they do care, they're not going to really take your advice. And I hope I don't offend anybody with this. Here's something. I'll see sports media people like tell people like wear a mask. Now, I believe in wearing masks. I wear my mask all the time, even though I got in trouble because I forgot to pull it up when I was talking to Joe Judge. But I wear my mask. But I'll see sports media people tweeting out to wear a mask. It's like, do you think anyone's making their decision on the Cincinnati Bengals beat writer tweets? Like
yeah,
people
probably not.
like they're not like what are you like you're not influencing that person. They're
Right,
wearing like me wearing a mask has nothing to do with people on Twitter. It has to do with like, okay, it says to wear a mask, and people that don't wear a mask aren't going to be like, you know what? I'm totally against this, but this guy said to do it, so I'm going to do it because I love his film
right,
break. Like, so I always try to remember like who we are, remember how we build our audience, and always like engage because I mean I have fun doing it. Like
right.
sometimes it's weird. It's like, oh, like these people like follow me and stuff, but it's like it's like they're like no one's any different, like and I can't stand when people get haughty toddy about like sports media. Like sports are the most like at the end of the day they're super meaningless and people just take themselves serious. So that's what I've always said, like told myself, like never take yourself too serious with this stuff. Like it like you can if I just completely deleted everything tomorrow, it's like, yeah, people would miss my breakdowns. Yeah. But it's like 99% of people aren't going to be like, oh, I miss Bobby's. Like, I miss Bobby on social media. They're just going to move on. And I don't blame them either.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go that far. Definitely, I can appreciate the fact of you wanting to like keep your roots and understanding where you come from, even if it blows up to be something much, much larger than you ever thought it could be, or maybe even want it to be. But don't ever think it's not important, man. If it wasn't important, your following wouldn't be that much. Like I said, the value on an item is what people are always willing to pay for it. So if you got a following that much, clearly it's important and valuable to the people who are listening, you know? So
I think my bigger point is like you said, I never want to be snobby about it. Like so when I went full time, week one of the season to do this, and so I made jokes like I did that day. It's like I did fireworks in my house to like, and I know it sounds nuts because it is fucking nuts, but it's
that's
like
typical
I
Florida man behavior. I can't really
yeah,
say I
yeah.
blame you.
So, but it was the video was just to be like, this is like, hey, I never want to be, a snobby media member. Like, this is who I am. This is, I like dumb jokes. I like to screw around, and it may be off-putting to some people, but it's who I am. And I never want to be like that. Like, and like, oh, here's something, and I'm not totally against this. I get the whole idea of like spreading awareness, but I see people like, there's a lot of people who just do good things to show, like, hey, look, I did a good thing.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've
It's
always
it's
been like,
like the difference between being a good person, like integrity, or like because integrity is doing or ethical. That's it, doing the right thing when nobody is looking. But then you have your people who do it because someone is looking.
for the sake, yeah. And listen, it always feels good to get patted on the back, and if someone finds out, like and gives you some praise for something you did, accept it. I've learned that too, because I used to be like, oh no, don't. It's like, accept it. It's like, if someone wants to give you praise for doing something, let them do it. But I always like, I think something with me, and I always try and do is whatever it is in life, just keep myself in check. Like, check yourself. Think about what somebody random person thinks of what you did, or what you didn't do. Um, So I've always done just check yourself and keep yourself grounded, because one, we're still tiny, like relative wise, but it's like, if you get like snobby and stuff and start doing things for the notoriety and for the likes and retweets, like then it becomes, I don't know, an inauthentic, like,
Right.
like with like doing good things. Like my content, I want likes and retweets. Like, I'm gonna do what I can for that. But like other like if I go and like, if if I help a homeless person, I'm not gonna record it and be like, hey dude, like, here's me giving you
and then
20
put it up
bucks.
on your podcast and be like, "Hey guys, guess what I did
I'm
today?"
spreading awareness. It's like, no, you're spreading your ego is what you're
Right,
spreading.
right. So we talked a little bit about your football. Why don't you give me both high school and college favorite football memories, just one each?
High school, man. Oh man.
Could
So
be
like
a
everyone,
specific play or like a specific game, like that was just a crazy game that you had a blast in, or maybe it was raining and you were just rolling around in mud, or
there was there was one. Our field was, football fields are supposed to be like a crown where they go like this, so the waterfalls. Ours was the opposite. It literally had like hills that went down into the field. And there was one game where it was just totally, the field was, I mean, was just wrecked. Like, it felt like you were like a Clydesdale running through there. Um, Favorite moment. Let's see. My sophomore year, or my sophomore year, we won our district, and that was pretty cool. Like, having that moment and doing that. So I'm trying to, you have some like, okay, and here was my issue playing. I would play. I was a person who would play down to my competition, but that also meant it's like I played up to it. So I remember this guy trash talking, who, he went D1. It's like, oh, I want 58. I want 58, and I just lit him up all game. The second play of the game, uh, and I was always a dirty player, and I admit that I played dirty. Nothing like too crazy, but just
right?
dirty. Second play of the game, he I'm blocking him, and my running back runs into the back of me. So I, you get ran into the back, you go like this, fall to my knees, and then he like folds me back and like tries to like drive me to the ground, and I just flip him over and just undercut, undercut, undercut. Got a penalty, obviously, and they're like it was like the second play of the game. My coach pulled me over. It's like, dude, we cannot lose you. So I behaved like for the rest of the game. I just remember trash talking him. So I like the trash talk. So there were some fun moments, but that was a fun moment because it was a big game, and it was, one of the better players I went against, and played well. So that was probably my favorite moment from my senior year.
So we talked about you living in Florida, and you said you were born in New York, and so that's how you kind of relate to the Giants. But I don't think we really specifically got into like how you actually became a Giants fan. I mean, obviously, maybe there's some ties from your family, but
It's it's basically that. Like I said, I wasn't really into sports and element. Like my dad's not into sports at all. Like he liked racing. He's an adrenaline junkie, like type guy. Um, like my dad doesn't sit down and watch football or bat. Like he's just not into it. Um, and but when I started liking sports, I was like, okay, what teams do I like? Like, okay, we're Giants. Like the one team was the Yankees. Like my family, we're like that's the one team. We're the Yankees fan. We're Yankees fans. I was like, okay, I'm from Jersey. I'm a Giants fan. I'm from Jersey. I'm a Nets fan. I'm from Jersey. I'm a Devils fan. So I just like, hey, I'm from Jersey. Those are the that's where I claim I'm a Giants fan. So that's how. And my family's Giants fans, anyways. That's the one team my entire family agrees on. Actually, is the Giants. Where, like I said, my dad's one of 8 kids. Half are Yankees fans, half are Mets fans. I've realized that the bad kids were all the Yankees fans. It almost like was they antagonizing the other side of the family that were Mets fans. And then basketball, none of them are really in the basketball. And I just love the Nets. The New Jersey Nets at the time, and those were the prime of Chasing Kid days. And then hockey, they're split with Rangers and Islanders. I'm the only Devils fan because I was just like I claim Jersey. I'm a Devils fan.
so we talked about talking Giants because that's obviously the banner behind you and how I found you. But you mentioned a little bit about your Simple Man Radio. I'm sure, especially in the off season, that's more a bit of your focus, probably. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you do there and how people can find you to get there?
It's where I actually started podcasting with Simple Man Radios. My friend Zach. In fact, we were just joking. What show? It was on Simple Man Radio on Friday. We were joking that my friend served in the Air Force and he was in Iraq. So he like while we were doing that podcast, we were at one point he was doing it from Iraq for 6 months. Um, but it turned into it was just talking sports, doing dumb jokes, like doing prank calls and stuff, and then interviews. Like we interviewed, like I mentioned, Mike Skinner. We interviewed Mike Skinner, bunch of like like Giants players, Cody Latimer, Tay Davis, Brandon Jacobs, Rich. Like we crazy doing interviews, and then when Talking Giants wasn't even Talking Giants. It was actually Giants Nation podcast. Me and Danny were with another company. We weren't working for them, but they were like our umbrella,
Right.
whatever. Like they had a Giants Nation page. We did the Giants Nation podcast. And then we joined up with John Boy and turned into Talking Giants. And once I realized that I had put over a year work of Simple Man Radio, and then in 3 months of doing Giants stuff, it was getting more views. I was like, okay, I need to focus on Giants stuff. So it started fading away after that. But it was always fun because it's just fun, lighthearted, like talking sports. So I brought it back as a YouTube live stream. It's on the podcast and stuff too, at its own channel. Um, and the goal is it to have it to be a daily show every day with me and Justin. And I let people who are involved with it, like Chris is involved, Entertain is involved with it. Danny, I would love to have Danny on it too, but he's in school now, so it's a little more difficult. But the goal eventually is it's myself and Justin. Myself, it's
Right.
basically the Bobby Skinner and Justin Pennick show. Because Justin has said it, like we sometimes we like just talking about nothing and
Yeah.
BSing more than we do the Giants. But
Yeah.
I like it's talking about checking yourself. It's like, guess what? 90% of those people like tune in for the Giants. So it's like you can't do that on the Giants podcast. You can do
Yeah.
it here and there and do like we'll go off and tell a story on something random every once in a while. But big picture, we're talking about the Giants, and that's what I want it to be. Where it's like we could talk about sports, talk about you know some guy I ran into at the store the night before. Like today, we started off with woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. There was a literal cat fight right out my window, and it scared me to death. I was ready to like get up and like fight for my life, and then realize it's a freaking cats going at each other, like
Your
ripping their.
cats or strays?
No, just some random stray cats that were outside my window, I guess.
What a way to wake up, huh? Only
Oh
in
my!
Florida, I
And
guess.
I don't know. Have you ever heard cats fight?
Um, not like crazy. I mean, just a
They
quick
are
like scratch,
ruthless.
and then they kind of split ways.
They're ruthless, man, and they are loud, and it sounds like a demon. It sounds like demons fighting.
Do you
It's
have any
it's
animals? Cats,
um
dogs?
no, which let me finish this and I'll get to that
Yeah, yeah.
because I had a dog for a while. Um, But basically, similar in radios that nothing. I did have a dog though. Her name was Lucy. She was a pit bull, and I'll pull up pictures to show you. Um, I had her, and we're talking about my life and stuff. I got her when I shouldn't have gotten an animal. Like it was dumb for me to get a dog. Like it was irresponsible. It was reckless, and it was selfish. It was just dumb of me to do. But I was living with one of my best friends. He had a dog, loved the dog, and we ended up moving into different, our lease or whatever had ended. I went and lived somewhere else. He went and lived somewhere else. Um, and then his dad got that dog's niece as a puppy, and I'll pull up the picture. And I just fell in love with it, got her. Um, and we lived in I had her for 7 years, lived in like eight different places. In July, I had to put her down, which it was pretty sudden too, man. And then it ripped me apart because, like I said, I lived in different places. You have this girlfriend here, or this relationship or no real
Right.
relationship for a year or something. I told you about like I had issues with drinking and some other stuff. I'd gotten clean. Like my whole life had basically happened with that dog by my side. Even some stuff I won't even share on this freaking podcast. But like my whole life had happened. That dog by my side, man. That dog saw some stupid stuff I did, man. And so that was like my one constant. And so when it was her time, man, it wrecked me pretty freaking good,
I'm
dude.
sure, man. Whenever you have like a close companion, whether it be a person, an animal, it doesn't matter. Anyone you're close to and go through a lot of things like that with, it's always hard when you lose them, you know.
Yeah, this was, yeah. It was. Everybody loves their dog, but I felt like it was a little different because, like I said, all the circumstances. That was um a couple weeks before she passed, and it
Adorable,
was
man.
sudden. Like she had, I won't go into it, but it's like
Yeah,
she had like basically like a UTI, and all of a sudden got crazy, and the surgery to even try and figure out if they could fix it was like thousands of dollars. I'm like, I'm not putting her through all this.
it's how it always is, man. I feel like sometimes the vet is more expensive than going to the doctors.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they would give you like I could have gotten loans. Like one, I'm not going to put her through that. I'm also not like I'm not going to put myself in thousands of dollars of debt either. And this
Right.
was the day after I had gotten her. So that was me and her out
Oh,
on the
that's
boat as a
awesome.
pup.
That's awesome.
And let me pull up one more.
Yep.
That other dog I was talking about, her uncle, the one
Uh
that I
huh.
was living with before, that's him next to her.
Oh wow.
He was a freaking beast, dude.
Oh
He was a cool
jeez.
dog. He actually had passed like 2 months before her. So yeah, but that dog, man, I was bro. I didn't talk to anybody for like 3-4 days. Like I talked to my mom and that was it. Um, and everyone calls you, and stuff, and I appreciate that, but it's like I do not want to say a word to anybody. Like I
Yeah.
just want to be alone. Leave me alone.
Right.
Which I kind of am in that way in general. It's like if I'm going through something, I don't need everyone chiming in and telling me how you feel. Like I appreciate it, but it's like I just don't want to hear. Like I just don't want to hear it.
I'm kind of the same way, and it's hard too because I mean, I'm married, I got 3 kids, so like if I'm going through something mentally, there's times that like you, I just kind of want to be alone, deal with it myself. But being in a marriage, it's kind of important that you have that line of communication so that you both know what's going on with each other all the time. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
that's
kind of
one of
one
the
of the things
reasons
that
I
I've had
haven't
to work
had.
with.
That's one of the reasons I haven't had a successful long-term relationship in a few years. Is I just shut down sometimes, man. It's like I know that I am being a shitty right now, but it's like I'm just doing it. Like I'm doing it.
All right, Bobby. Well, give me one more tidbit, whether that's just a statement or a story, something that you think's impacted your life, or just a funny story that maybe not a lot of people know about you before we close the show out.
Man, see a story that's impacted my life. See, the issue is some of those things I try to keep private, so I can't. Like I have stuff in my head, but it's like if people use that stuff against me.
It could just be something funny too, so, like something that just a lot of people that watch don't know about you.
Okay, so here, since this is what I have been open about with people, and most people don't know. Like I said, you hear me. I never talk about myself playing football because honestly, I'm ashamed of the way my football life went. Like I said, I went to college, and when I say I was there for 2 years, it wasn't because I just felt like leaving. Like I was kicked out of that school because of issues I had, um, and but football at the end of the day is not like playing college football wasn't that important. So leaving that school, I came back to Florida, hit real life, man, and that really like impacted me. It's like, okay, you're living on your own. I screwed around for a couple of years and then got, like I said, I got totally clean for like 4 or 5 years. I'm clean now, like I'm saying,
Right.
like I don't have like the badge of like, hey, I haven't had a drink, but I didn't have a drink for like 4 years. Um, so I guess that's something that I haven't shared a ton with is like that's why one I don't want to be the guy like, oh, I played, and it's like, dude, you played at some small little college school, like no one cares. That one that, but two, it's like, man, I'm like ashamed of the way my football life went down. Like if you were to talk to my college coaches, it wasn't like what was the issue with Bobby? It's like, well, he liked football, but he never showed up to workouts. He had serious issues with alcohol. Like he didn't show up to class. He failed all his, like it's like he was not invested in anything. But it also like kind of it was a good learning lesson, and it was good for me to get out of there and hit real life at 20 years old instead of just barely getting through college till 22, being stuck up in myself, not having reality hit, like getting out of there 2 years early. Like you look back and it's like I screwed it up, but I look back and I'm actually glad that I got out of there
Right. Yeah. I mean,
when I did.
sometimes some of the worst things you can go through have the best impact on your life.
Oh
In
yeah,
in my
100%.
first episode, I talked about my wife's um, boyfriend, and how that whole situation went down. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that portion of the episode. I apologize to anyone who watched that and thought I was getting a bit too docile, but when I was telling that story, it wasn't because, like I said, I thought my story was any bit special. But I couldn't expect people like you, Bobby, to come on here and give a little bit of insight into your life and things that have impacted you as a person and gotten you where you are now, um, without doing it myself, especially on my own channel. So I just want to thank you again for coming on here, Bobby. Don't want to cut you short, but I feel like I've taken up enough of your time.
No,
So
thank you, man. And honestly, this is what your idea for this is cool, is because a lot of people don't get to see this side of like, like I said, there's when we're doing Talking Giants, I feel a need like, hey, I stick to the New York Giants for the most part. So
right.
I think what you're doing is pretty cool, and it's fun to come on and who doesn't like talking about themselves for a little while? So you give people a platform to do that, man. I
You
think
get to
people are gonna
boast
like it.
without boasting, and you get
Yeah,
to use
yeah.
my
It's like,
channel
oh,
to do it. So,
yeah, exactly. So I appreciate it, man.
all right. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. This has been the second episode of Mic'd Up with Max Webster. We welcomed on Bobby Skinner today. Looking forward to getting more guests on here in the direction of this channel. I hope you enjoyed watching. Have a good one.